Dear colleagues, friends, participants of the panel, good afternoon and good morning as well, and welcome to the panel Universities of the Future. I'm Blaženka Divjak, I'm professor at the Faculty of Organization and Informatics, University of Zagreb, and I'm going to be your host today and one of the panelists. We witnessed actually in the last couple of months that many universities transformed and have transformed and also very fast changed the way how they are teaching and how their students are learning. And it is a quite fast speed up of digital transformation in general for universities. And we can see that change not just at the level of institutions, but on the individual level of student, professor, but also on societal and political level, there are quite a big changes. And the transition, of course, brought us positive, but also negative effects. And what I would like also to stress, it's once in a century probably opportunity to rethink the system, really rethink the whole system of higher education and practices in a way that prepares institutions not just to survive this, let's say, crisis caused by COVID-19, but also to be successful. And that's very important, to be successful. And today we would like to discuss this phenomena, but also to discuss how to size this opportunity and share visions of different universities of the future. So I think that today we have opportunity to learn a lot from the panelists. The panelists are prominent scientists and decision makers in higher education from European Union and United States. And let me now briefly introduce them, because later we will have opportunity to learn more about them and also their views on the questions and the topic of the panel. So I'm going to introduce them in alphabetical order. So Ivica Crnković from Chalmers University of Technology and University of Gothenburg, Sweden. Hello Ivica, how is it in Sweden? We will hear from you later. Then Lourdes Guardia from Open University of Catalonia, Spain. Hello, Lourdes.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Then Enrique Mu from Carlow University, Pittsburgh, USA. Good morning, Enrique.
Good morning, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, and Mladen Boak from North Carolina State University, USA. Also, good morning, Mladen. Welcome.
Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, the pleasure is ours to have you and all of you here on the panel. So, scenario for today panel is the following. In the first part of the panel, we, the panelists, will have an opportunity to explain our views on the topic in approximately 7 minutes. And after each presentation, there will be an option for somebody from the panel to comment or ask a short question. And then in the second part, the floor will be open to the questions from the audience. Therefore, let me kindly ask the participants to write questions. You can start right now and write your questions and comments in the chat, and we will try to read them, to consider them and answer them in the second part of the panel. Finally, at the end, I'll ask our panelists to reflect shortly on their perspectives on the universities of the future in their concluding remarks. And let me now start with Professor Mladen Boak from North Carolina State University. And I'm going now to read a short CV because reading the extensive CV, Mladen CV would take quite a long time, but now I have a short version and I'll ask Mladen to prepare in the meantime. So Mladen Boak received PhD from King's College, University of London, UK, and He is Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation at State University and Distinguished Professor of Computer Science. Dr. Vogt has extensive experience in both commercial software production and academic computing. He is author or co-author of over 300 publications. Dr. Vogt is a recipient of the IFIP Silver Core Award. He is an IEEE Fellow and the recipient of the IEEE Distinguished Service and Gold Core Awards. We are happy that you are with us, Mladen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Really appreciate the introduction. Again, good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure and a privilege to have the opportunity to address you. We all, of course, know about the pandemic, and for us, the practical view when it came to teaching was essentially that we had to switch from normal operations face-to-face to online operations within 2 weeks. And the result was mixed. Some people have been teaching face-to-face for a long, long time and haven't really tried distance education. And now they had to learn how to do that. And one basic problem with remote teaching is, at least in my experience, and it doesn't matter what you use, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, today's technology just isn't far enough to do it right, is that instructors really have a difficult time catering to different learning models and styles of the students. My experience is that up to about 1/3 of the students can learn if you do it at a distance. No matter what you do, you could probably give them a library card and they would learn. But for the rest of them, you really, really have to do a very good job to cater to their learning styles. And about 1/3, if you do it well, will learn well. And then there is up to 1/3 that just need the social proximity, actually, not distance, social proximity and personal touch, and therefore may never be really very suited for distance education. And that problem is not going to go away until we have AI assistants that understand the learning models of students and can adapt whatever the professor says to the learning model of the student. And there are different classifications of learning models, but basically people are either visual or auditory or reading, writing oriented, or sort of touch oriented, hands-on oriented. And a number of courses you only can teach, or at least well, by having laboratories in similar environments. So it's an open problem. And we know, for instance, from MOOCs, that massive online open courses, that up to 5% people can be successful, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more, because it just isn't the right environment for everybody. So this is going to be a challenge from now on, because I think given the pandemic situation, we will be in this at least mixed mode where people are at home or working from somewhere else and teaching and learning somewhere else for some time to come. And so the challenge, I think, of what is coming is to try and figure out, first of all, AI aids that can modify things to the style of the student, and B, actually have the right mix of in-person or face-to-face teaching and online teaching. So the universities will change, there's no question about it. The only question is whether we're going to be leading that or being left behind, because students will go where the delivery of what they need to do is most efficient. So, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
Mladen, for your views and sharing with us. As far as I can see, it's you have a question or comment on that, please.
Yes, I have a comment. Thank you, Mladen. It's really, you talked about, I recognized also here in Sweden. But I'm interested in your comment about AI aids. So do you really believe, or maybe the question is how far this AI aid can go? Because at the end, people like to have this social proximity.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Ivica. And I can say that AI is not where it should be today to do that. That's for sure. AI can only do so much. And I don't think that enough intelligence is available really to do what I mentioned, but it will be coming in the future in some form. I would say 10 to 15 years we'll probably have that. The social component is extremely important. The reason we have universities as they are because people only learn at a certain rate. And the rate is roughly 4 years to learn what we expect them to learn. And they do need social contact because that is one of the components of learning, of growing. And so I don't think that'll ever go away. It'll just have to be complemented or supplemented by the distance in AI. So.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for your views, and especially mentioning immediately social proximity and opportunity for university to be lagging, to be leading or lagging behind. Yeah? Now I'm going to ask Lourdes to express her view on the topic and on the questions we posed before. And in preparation, I'm going to introduce Lourdes. So Lourdes Guardia from Open University of Catalonia, Spain, is a Deputy Dean of Teaching at Psychology and Education at Open University of Catalonia. And she is the Chair of Curriculum for design of Empower, so European Education of Distance Teaching. Those of you who are not participating or having presentation to mute your microphones. And Lourdes' research expertise is on online and open education, and she is actively involved in European projects for quite a long time, since 1996. So Lourdes, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Blaženka. Well, good afternoon and good morning. First of all, I would like to thank CECIIS conference and particularly to Blaženka this invitation. It is a pleasure to share with you and the other panelists my thoughts and my views of the university future. So I will try to address this question. I have too much things and too much ideas and views to say, but I would like to synthesize also the main ideas. First, as a key point, I would like to mention that current debate of the future of the university system questions also the foundations of the institution as it is, compelled to adapt to a social context where technology plays a predominant role. I mean that this doesn't mean that existing teaching models should be replaced, but that technological advance should be used by universities to enhance traditional forms of pedagogy, expanding the pedagogical possibilities regarding the affordances of technology. And these advantages drive the emergence of innovative pedagogies and practice that in turn generate this kind of, we can say, digital disruption of education, acting as a catalyst for the main developments in higher education. But these effects are not only found at institutions with experience delivering distance and online education at WorkEast, for example. Traditional face-to-face universities are also moving towards a greater use of technology and interactive methodologies using digital media. We saw how this combination of classroom experience with the convenience and flexibility of online provision increases student interaction and engagement. In this regard, technology supports traditional models of higher education as a transformative complementary tool. Well, I can say, I'm not sure, but sometimes I say that probably we are in front of a changing pedagogical landscape, isn't it? So where technology is seen as a mean to change higher education models, and with this regard, offer new opportunities for teaching and learning. So I would like also to say that the main transformation trends we can observe are leadership and institutional strategy, gradual innovation at the course and curriculum level also, increase and scalable continuous education and continuous professional development offers. We see how face-to-face universities are offering more and more online courses before pandemic situation also. An increasing internationalization of higher education and virtual mobility as a strategic issue also. So these are trends we already can observe in this last years. So, but I would like to mention that as a professor at the Open University of Catalonia, fully online university during 25 years, because we started from the scratch being online, I can see this capacity and the resistance of institutions in implementing technology that is something that should be addressed urgently. So probably the actual scenario, I hope, will push in this direction, definitely. So we'll see what happens in the future. So I also would like to comment that in terms of the economics impact, it is sure that universities will need to adjust their courses, curricula, and degree programs to meet learners' needs, as well as the demands of new industries. So technological advance respond to students' needs as they increasingly seek non-traditional routes to education. I can say that this underlines that higher education institutions are moving to new models for online programs, such as another way of assessment, competence-based approach, for example, and crediting, giving micro-credentials and digital badging. We know many universities that already are offering this kind of credentialization, as Deakin University in Australia, among others, for example. So, well, this is all for now. I think I can add more comments during the debate.
Thank you, Lourdes. Yeah, you said a lot of very important thoughts about non-traditional students and, of course, needs for adjustment for that. Is there anybody from the panel that would like to comment on what Lourdes said? Enrique, would you like to comment on that, or you're happy with what Lourdes said about it? Please, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Well, Lourdes made me choose universities that are supposed to be the age of innovation are really very, very conservative in terms of adopting changes for themselves, you know? So I think that's one of the major issues. And in that sense, the pandemic has done more for digital transformation in a few weeks than anything we did or tried to do for the past 15 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you so very much. If there is nobody else that would like to react on what Lourdes said, and there is no one volunteering for that, and now I'm going to ask Ivica Crnkovic to prepare, and let me introduce him properly with a short bio. So, as I said before, Ivica Crnkovic, professor from Chalmers University of Technology, University of Gothenburg, Sweden, is a professor in software engineering at Chalmers University and also at the Gothenburg University, as I said before, and the director of Chalmers AI Research Center. His interest in research is software development of complex systems. He is active in the international research community and has organized the leading conferences in software engineering. During many years, he was teaching courses distributed in distributed environment as joint courses with University of Zagreb, Politecnico di Milano, VU Amsterdam universities and university and others. He's having a continuous cooperation with Croatian universities. Thank you for that. And Professor Crnković actually obtained his PhD at University of Zagreb. So it is your turn. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for welcoming. And as a technician, I will show some slides. Okay, and this is Gothenburg, and it looks approximately today like that. But what I would like to say is some experience about my teaching over the internet or digital one. And here you can see one picture, which is actually 10 years old. And you can see a lot of flags. So there are different students from different countries. But what is interesting here maybe is what you see here behind. And that was from Zagreb University, from Faculty of Electrical Engineering, when we had common lectures using this way. 10 years ago, that was a kind of expensive business. You know, this equipment was very expensive and was quite difficult to organize all around it, but it was also very exciting. We talked most about cultural differences, less about problem with this distributed teaching, which obviously there was many problems related to that. But then I switched today. And here you can see like a typical set of one workshop I had a few days ago. So you can see people at home, people in office, one on the moon. So there are like on different places, and that works quite fine. Or maybe this one, which I can show you, is our discussion with our PhD students. Most of them in Gothenburg, but one was in Denmark, one was in China, so that worked also well. And one experience, and this is examination. So this is identification of a student who is supposed to be take exam. And of course, I have to know that this person who is responding is actually that person, and that's a little bit challenging. So there are many good experience. This is also a screenshot of my lecturing. And here you can see that I'm using some online tools. In this, there's Jupyter, and I do some editing and show to the students. And also during the breaks, and sometimes I'm using video sequences, for example, like this. So probably you have heard about this 3 blue plus 1 brown YouTube channel, which gives excellent illustration of some things which we are teaching them, and showing them it's really very, very good and very pedagogical. So I like that. Then of course there are other things, and maybe you can see here it is me. Here is my assistant, PhD students, and here are the students. They don't want to show themselves. You know, so actually I'm talking to these anonymous pictures. So, but you know, there are so many positive things in this digital education, which we all had to work with. And I was watching how that was in Croatia, and I was really proud actually to see how does it work, because this was a great example how you can organize in a short term such education. For example, in Sweden, the students still had to go to the school, the primary school, and so because the state was not possible to organize that in such a short term. So there are many achievements which are impressive, but then we come to also to the question, what do we lose? Which we also heard from Mladen. So you see, the question is, okay, where is our identity? What is about social relations? How do we build our communities? So this is like a question which we meet if we have also only this distributed communication. Then also those things which are not formally defined, unexpected opportunities to meet someone and to talk, you know, unpredictable events, take chances. Do we lose by this type of communication? And what about democracy? And here about democracy, I think maybe if we are building a society with maybe now with a different type of classes, those people which know and those people which don't know. So it's about knowledge, you know, not about money, it's about knowledge, those which can, digital world, and those which cannot. And is that a risk that we run into a lot of problems which we cannot cope with? So I think that from our side, there is a big, big responsibility. So that we big that digitalization for all. We have to think about that. We are experienced with using computers and internet and you know the technique, but not all people can do that. So education, I think, is even more important than before. I think that we also have missions really to educate people about the technical possibilities. And we also have to have a dialogue, also to understand non-technical people, what problem and what kind of thinking they have, and also understanding human and social sciences, which maybe there is a kind of gap. I had several discussions with people from social sciences, you know, they usually are worrying. There are people which are worrying. There will be no democracy, or the people, how they will work and so on. We from natural science and from technical science, we look more, how can we solve the problems? So we are more positive. So the last one, maybe just to future about the universities, what will happen? I think there will be more chances and there are more risks, more, for example, about this global monopolization, so that there will be a few centers which will rule the world in education. Then the university as such will lose authority, which it had for many, many years, because there will be many companies popping up, providing services. So maybe universities will not be so important as we would like to see them. At the same time, there are many opportunities, and it's really like a challenge to identify the new values. And as being positive, I think that we have to work on these challenges and really try to fight with them and come with the new values. So that's my optimistic statement at the end of this introduction.
Thank you very much, Ivica, for your optimism at the end. But you mentioned also a lot of stuff to worry about, it is not easy to actually, especially for people from coming from the IT. So thank you for saying that, to understand that there are areas with a lot of difficulties with digitalization and going fully online, or using extensively technology for teaching and for learning. And not all of our students are digital natives. I'm just looking around the panel if there is somebody else that would like to comment on that. Enrique, yes, please do.
Thank you, Erika. Very interesting. One important thing that you mentioned about education, we are in the IT field and we love technology and we know what technology can do for us. But in social sciences, now that you mentioned, a tendency to believe that technology is unhuman, or that the best way to teach social sciences is socializing and so forth. So a lot of the problems that with virtual education perceived as being second class is because that's the message many of us pass to the students. Oh, you know what? There is a pandemic, we cannot really teach as we should. So at least we'll be able to complete the credits. So we really need to start teaching the teachers and the students that this is not really like a replacement player, yeah, but it's really a complement of what education is. You know, otherwise students will always perceive, and many of us will perceive it as second-class instruction.
Exactly. I think you are fully right, and really to see which new qualities we can bring, it's very important. So maybe less, in a sense, do just replacement, but really maybe change and look at these possibilities. And of course, that requires a lot of work and finding out the best way.
Okay, thank you for both of you. And now, Enrique, it's your turn to explain, to broaden your perspective on the questions and your comments on that. So let me introduce you and prepare yourself for your presentation. So Enrique Mo is a professor of IT management and decision-making at Harvard University. And he's also an affiliated researcher with the University of Pittsburgh. His work has been published in IEEE Computers and Education, International Journal of Production Economics, and similar academic outlets. He received a proclamation from the city of Pittsburgh for facilitating critical decision-making and has been officially recognized as Friend of Faculty of Organization Informatics for his collaboration with the faculty and students here. So, Enrique, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Am I sharing my screen? Is it right?
Yes, we can.
Yes?
See it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I want to focus on two aspects, two questions that were posed to the panel, but I will represent the voice of the students here, because I will base my comments on a study that was done this summer with 484 college students that were forced, like most of the world, to take courses online. And basically, there were 4 open questions, among other questions, which was, what were the challenges that you face at personal level, family level, institutional level, infrastructure level, when using virtual instruction? So I will use the preliminary findings to address my thoughts about the future of education. In the personal aspects, there were many things that were really very impressive, because when we started this study, we were thinking about internet limitations, computers, you know, blended, all the technical parts, but the students really emphasized many things that I guess we didn't really think that much. There were a lot of complaints about feeling depressed, a lot of complaints that they feel isolated, even when attending these virtual classes. They would say, well, you know, I used to hang around with my classmates, friends, exchange ideas after class. Now I am like in a cell. I don't have any space needed for recreation or sharing with my peers. Or I spend all day long in front of the screen. At the end of the day, I'm really very, very tired. I haven't had a chance to play soccer in months. You know? And in general, many express that lockdown gets young people very depressed. And on top of that, there is this issue that you have friends that are sick, family that are sick, people that have died, and nobody seems to care at all about this. And we just get more and more homework and harder exams. And so that was really an aspect that made me think, how can we talk about student engagement? How can we improve student engagement if the student is not really engaged psychologically with what's going on? Some ideas, I'm sure that many of you will have better ideas than me, but I think we should design in the courses some way to create virtual spaces for informal interactions, or perhaps do as many instructors have done, that at the beginning, in the middle of the class, they ask the students to stand up and stretch out. Let's make that part of the instruction. And in terms of mental health, universities have been reactive. If you feel depressed, go to the student assistance department. But now, in virtual education, there is no such possibility. So we need to find ways to be more preemptive about that. The other aspect that was mentioned a lot by the students was quality of learning. Everybody's convinced, the students are convinced that instruction quality is lower. And they say actually the students even don't do their job because they teach less time than in physical sessions. However, when reviewing this, as we know, many times in blended instruction, it is recommended actually that we add online less time than usual, because it's very tiring to be watching somebody on the screen for 3 hours, right? But students are careless about teaching. Class participation is not the same. And the most important thing in my career is practice, and it is difficult to do. And this makes sense. You know, there is a limit to what we can do in terms of simulation. And this was really valuable. One student actually elaborated more. He said, you know, I was attending a physical line. I don't know what is expected from me. I don't know how to take advantage of this. I get bored. But what I have discovered is that the faculty are also clueless about how to teach online. So I don't know how to learn online. They don't know how to teach online. I get bored, they get bored. so that was really a very common observation, which I think makes sense. So what will we do to preserve the quality of learning? Again, some ideas, and I'm sure that many of you will have even better ideas. Let's fight this low perception. So educate the students about what exactly virtual learning is, and that, again, it is not lower quality. It's a different complements the physical approach. We need to develop strategies to promote class interactivity, perhaps in each class to create teamwork, and subdivide the groups in teams and in private rooms, and so they can interact both with the work as well as socially to an extent. And are definitely needed. I think it will never be able to replace the actual field work, but it may alleviate. And the last point, I think, is the most important thing. When I was learning to teach, actually, I started teaching English. And I will sit, before I was allowed to teach, I had to take 2-week classes, pass an exam, and I was coached. And my mentor used to say, if a teacher doesn't know what he's gonna teach, the student is clueless about what he or she is going to learn. Now, this was many years ago in Peru, which is not really at the top of the countries in terms of education. And I was trying to teach before I was put in a classroom. When I went for my PhD, my training was, can you start teaching next semester? This is the textbook we're using. I was never trained, and to my knowledge, no PhD program has a course or formal training, not even as a seminar, in how with virtual education if we want to preserve the quality of learning. So that's my grain of sand contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrique. It was most interesting because it's not just the isolation of students that we have been experiencing, but also isolation of teachers. And so we also need to cope with that. And sometimes this training for teachers helps, and also sharing different perspectives. And I don't know if there is anybody from the panel that would like to comment. Mladen, please do.
Yeah, so this is a very good example, a sample, Enrique, of the issues. We have seen the similar ones actually with students and with faculty, and certainly mental health of students has actually worsened if one believes the numbers because of the crisis, the pandemic crisis. And faculty are not spared that. There is a constant undertone of COVID fatigue, and you know, people in the first 3 months were happy to be home maybe and consider that as more of a break. That's gone at this point in time, and people are anxious to go back because there is a lot of social component in working with people, and so this is really excellent. We have actually implemented extensive training of faculty in distance education. We've had 20% of our courses online and over close to 40 years. So it's not like we don't have expertise in it, but you are right. People haven't been trained to do it for most part, and it does take different set of skills. And so, you know, human subjects research, for instance, is not doing so well right now because of the you know, you cannot go to school, you cannot do this and that. But we actually have an institute that has trained 12,000 teachers in K-12 schools how to do distance education, because it's even more difficult with little kids. You know, people in the university, these undergraduate students and certainly graduate students are much more self-controlled and have sort of a ability to focus. It's not the same with little kids, and so it's even more difficult. And I can see the university of the future really not being just you come in for 3 or 4 years or 5 years and then go out. It's really more of a situation where you bootstrap the student for lifelong learning. So the students will be able to actually learn on their own. Some of the learning will have to be obviously online and virtual, but some of it will for sure have to be personal and in-person teaching and in-person learning. And it'll still take between 3 and 5 years to actually get a degree, because humans only learn at a certain rate, no matter the technology. It's not like you can transfer information into someone's head. You know, there's a lot of micro-credentialing going around, which is supposed to replace some of the university activities, but this is it's really not going to solve the problem. And so all I can say is that it looks like in the future, we will actually have to provide some form of face-to-face interactions to provide the social maturation that takes place in institutions of higher learning, and to help the 30+% of those that really do need that to learn properly. So yeah, thank you for this. It's a very interesting study. I would be interested in the paper when it comes out.
Thank you.
I totally agree on that. So this pandemic has demonstrated that many higher education institutions remain strategically unprepared in providing quality education in times of crisis. So as seen in the difficulties reported globally when educators were forced to move their classes online. I think that design online instruction properly is time consuming and economical resources are needed. So, but I'm sure that to engage students, we need a strategic design for active learning, which implies learners having a more active role in content generation, active use of technology for learning, appropriate use of gamification, encouraging learners to proactively seek and use teacher, peer, and wider academic community feedback. So I think we have methodologies enough, but just to be conscious that this strategic plan for how we can support teachers, how we can offer training in terms of digital, to be digital competent also for students and also for educators, not just for educators. So it's the scenario, it's not easy. It's a little bit complex.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So thank you, all of you that participated in this, let's say, first mini round. And let me now opportunity to explain how I see it, because I'm also one of the panelists. But in the meantime, I think Ivica is going to introduce me officially, and I'm going to find my presentation.
Yes, I have honor to present you, and Blaženka was a Croatian Minister for Science and Education, as we all know, until July this year. And she was chairing EU Councils of Ministers for Education, Research and Space during Croatian presidency. Blaženka holds a PhD in mathematics from the University of Zagreb and is a full professor at University of Zagreb, Faculty of Organization and Informatics. And she authored over than 100 papers in the field of mathematics, strategic planning in higher education and research, and learning analytics and e-learning. So please say us what you think about that.
Thank you very much, Ivica. It was a pleasure hearing from you, how you're introducing me. And let me go through a few slides just to explain how I see this rapid learning by doing and problem solving during the pandemics, because at that time I was not at a university, but I was the minister, as Ivica said. And it was quite interesting to see it from the position of the minister, the difference between schools and universities, but also I had the opportunity to compare different EU member states because in the first half of this year, Croatia was chairing the Council of European Union. So I was chairing the Council of Ministers that were in charge of education and research. And it was quite interesting position, even though it was quite a burden, but at the same time I learned a lot how actually very rapidly, not just COVID-19 pandemic actually pushed the universities to the digital transformation, but also that the need for more flexible and adaptable university structures and so on was a need. And what I remember then when we shut down schools and universities in Croatia, schools immediately started with the online teaching and learning, and Ivica actually showed one of the opportunities that we provided our students and pupils with. It is a school on TV, but also online teaching and platforms and so on. But with the university, it was different because there were some faculties and some universities that started immediately and tried to use the opportunity to transform and teach online. But some of them are just waiting for pandemic to stop, and then they can continue in a normal way. So it was quite interesting for me to see it. And The problem was also the inclusiveness and equal opportunities for all our students. And it was something that was identified by other ministers of education in EU, regardless of if the country is rich or poorer country. It doesn't mean that the students have the same, haven't had at that time the same opportunities. And this is one small, that's not research, it was a question that I asked our students at the graduate level. I asked them at the undergraduate level, but I choose here to show you a few just information about what the students said about what is the biggest challenge of distant teaching and learning. And the graduate students, so students that spent at least 3 years at the university, said that the biggest problem is communication with teachers. And it was the same result when I asked undergraduate students or freshmen that finished the gymnasium or other secondary schools. And 300 of them, also the majority of them said that the communication with teacher is the most difficult issue for them in the first half of the year. Then, so it is the same what you said before, or it correlates with what you said. Then the second, it is inappropriate teaching methods that teachers use, because some of the teachers said, and that word is emphasized, that okay, I'm just going to copy paste what I did in a classroom in an online environment. It doesn't work. That's not good. And then, even though these students are studying informatics, they said that equipment sometimes is a problem, because it's not just having the computer, but having a really good, stable network, Wi-Fi, and so on at home, within the family home or in a dormitory and so on. And of course, some of them said that we are just boring and we are not motivating them. But that's probably true as well. And interestingly, but nobody said that students' skills for online learning should be actually they should be retrained about it. But it is quite different on the undergraduate level. They also ask for some support for them as well. But if you look at this issue of equipment, it means that we should really think about it, how we can help students to find sponsors or rent them computers, or ask for, telecom providers for free internet for learning and so on. So, but this interaction, it is something that we should really point out as a very critical factor when we look about the quality indicators. So interactions between student and teacher, between students, what you said before, to provide some secure environment for them to socialize, or without teachers supervising them, but also student employers as well. And then the second, when I asked them to in an open question to said would they find also as a difficult factor, it was, they said that some students are quite often cheating at the examinations, and that we should take care about it. And it is something that we should ask ourselves, what we are going to do with assessment in online environment, because we are aware that assessment very often guides learning. We would like to say differently, but that's true, that assessments often guides learning. And we should ask ourselves what is an essential for our students to know or be able to do. So to think really much more about attended learning outcomes, and then to connect the learning outcomes with assessment methods. But these assessment methods, whenever we can do it, should be relevant. We should ask them essential stuff, not something that it is on the margin, or something that it's not so important for their professional or of course citizenship, not just professional life. But also to use authentic examples, and to push students, to ask students, to stimulate students for a deep approach to learning. I said that this is a read that should be covered. And to use much more formative assessment, peer assessment, self-assessment. And if you can do that, then we can, in some extent, prevent cheating by smart assessment. But of course, the most important thing is development of culture of zero tolerance for cheating, and educating students about academic honesty and acceptable behavior. It is important. And whenever it's possible, as I said, to use these complex tasks, because then we need less control. It's more fun for students. They can see they can see why they are doing that. And of course, it means that we should spend much more time on preparation. On the other hand, of course, there are sometimes a need for routine tasks to give students. Of course, then it means that we should really have a more control or use of artificial intelligence or learning analytics to prevent some behavior that is not acceptable. And also to use bigger task bank and so on. It's a kind of a balance, so we can use both. I'm really very much in favor of complex tasks, but since I'm a mathematician and sometimes I should also ask students to fulfill some routine task, and this kind of work we should be aware of. And finally, let me share with you my thoughts on digital transformation of universities. So I really, despite many negative effects, I think that it is a positive one that we should think about sizing the opportunity for a complete makeover of the way how we are thinking about not just teaching, but learning, how students learn, how they're behaving, what they are needing, what kind of a support we can provide them. But also, what does it mean for our research? What does it mean for our administration? So that's the reason I said complete makeover. And it's really, if it's a set, it is a kind of a, nowadays we have, probably we are in danger to have a kind of a global monopolization of education, but at the same time, it's opportunity for new players. We should be fast, and because the cards are shuffled again, and we should be very keen on trying to find our place in a higher education landscape globally. So, and it means that we should shake the ivory tower structure of traditional universities, not just waiting to pass, but to see what can we learn from that, what can we provide our students with. Because of course, sometimes we are just listening people saying that students, and especially in schools, that they are missing some content or something like that. But many of them also reported that they learn how to be independent researchers, how they have cognitive skills better. And so it is something that we should really think about it, that this hybrid learning is a new normal, and what does it mean for students learning, but also what does it mean for us and the opportunity for us to develop in the right direction, but also to reshape physical campuses. Because I think that it is sometimes it is really it's so sad to see empty big auditoriums. But I think that in near future we couldn't count on to filling them with students. But we should think about this hybrid campuses as a new normal. And don't compete with artificial intelligence and learning analytics, but use it in the right way. Of course, be aware of the ethical principles. And finally, again about equal opportunities, because talents are distributed evenly, but opportunities are not. And we are also here to take care about to make it better, because the talents are the most valuable assets. So the students, the talented students, and the young people actually are the most valuable asset, and we should develop our universities accordingly to support them. So thank you very much for the opportunity that I also share my view on the topic. And is there anybody that would like to comment on that?
Maybe I can comment. It was very interesting. I think you mentioned several things which I have seen here in Sweden from slightly different perspective. Maybe the last one, what you said, that the talents are the most valuable assets, that we should emphasize them. And that's also my private view. I have seen here in Sweden, like taking care, like idea to taking care about the people who have more difficulties. And not only who are like really have difficulties, but maybe who are not so motivated, but then we should, as a teachers motivate them. And so how do you see in this distribution of the students? And that's also related to cheating. Some are really interested, but some, okay, just want to pass. So how to make this balance between these talents and like average students, especially when you don't have such control now?
Thank you very much for asking that. It's quite a complex question, because sometimes we should put much more effort into discussing in secondary and secondary schools with students what are their expectations, and also give them some instruction about what their talents are, because sometimes if they are just entering some university to be there to spend the time, they can probably have opportunity to find their interests in that. But if it is not a right place for them, then it can be what you said, for them just a place to find easy way to pass through, and sometimes even use the behaviors like cheating to succeed. What does it mean to cheat? But there's a reason why we should be much more flexible also at the university level. If you have a student with for example, in IT that is, and we can really find a way to advise them, and to use the career advice for them, maybe to how to find their interest into this study, or to change to another study track. But for example, in Croatia, unfortunately, they are still very rigid about it. And that sometimes prevent teachers to have, let's say, much more freedom to advise students, or career centers, and also students to find their ways and find the place that they can use the talent or develop their talents and skills in a much better way. Okay, we have now, of course, we are now in according to our schedule, we are now in second half of our panel, and we have opportunity to comment or answer the questions from the audience. So I have one question here. What do you think will happen with the international academic cooperation after the pandemic, also with students and staff exchange and mobilities? So it's very, very important, especially in EU and of course in US, because of this mobility aspect. And now we have mobility. Sometimes students are in mobility because they not just would like to learn something in a state university or in Catalonia or in Sweden, but also to experience different culture, different way of living, and so on. So would like to start with Lourdes first. Yes, please do.
Yes, so regarding this issue, well, networking society is also pushing the internationalization of higher education. So I see that in this regard, this phenomena addresses the crucial role that digital learning plays as a catalyst for the internationalization and mobility of both instructor and students, not just students. I mean, in terms of a more collaborative online international learning via technology that enable virtual mobility. So in this sense, technological transformation I see is a vital factor in bridging the gap between universities and society, making these institutions more accessible to the wider public, including vulnerable communities such as migrants, cultural minorities, and can extend education within the local society and beyond the national and international levels? So I think it's a very good question.
I think so. Anybody else would like to comment on that? This mobility in when we have this pandemic, but also post-pandemic, in this question, how we can do it. If not, I'm moving to the next question. Yeah, Ivica, you would like to add something to the previous one?
Enrique was
waving. Sorry, in a small picture. I don't know why. It was not my intention. So please comment the previous one, and then we proceed to the next question.
Yeah, no problem. I think the international cooperation is actually going to be more. Why? Because now these virtual tools are accepted like something that is viable, it works, etc. So actually, I've seen many job offers about teaching in Germany or for teaching here, and full-time faculty and fully online. So to work and the advancement in the tools and the acceptance of the tools makes it much better in terms of improving the international cooperation. True, in order to develop trust in virtual collaboration, it is said that you need, at least at the beginning, to develop a personal rapport professionally and socially with the people you're going to work with. But after that, you can really work a lot internationally. And I'm engaged in many projects with actually the University of Zagreb. So I'm very confident about the improvement in international cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you. Let us now move to the second question. As far as I'm aware, many universities and schools are trying to recreate physical classes in virtual environments. For example, trying to make the experience same as face-to-face classes. Do any of you think that universities should be focused more on trying to think of and create a new way to teach in a virtual environment? It's very interesting.
Yeah, I would, this is a really good question, and it's the wrong thing to do, actually, to try and reproduce the physical environment, because that'll require technology which really isn't there, and it's not going to be there for a long time. What we need to do is remember what we do in the classroom. In the classroom, you have 50 or 100 people in your class, and you are teaching basically to the median or middle of that group. You're not trying to help those that need help, and those that may know more are bored, right? And that's the time-consuming part. You don't have time to teach everybody what they want. The opportunity with the AI and with the new environments is that everybody can have personalized experience. The professor can talk, but the machine can actually take that and take off in a different direction and teach people who need more attention the details that they don't understand, and can actually talk more about more interesting things with people who already have some of the knowledge. And that's doable. The preparation for such course would be much longer than it is right now and what we do. But that is something that we could definitely do. But I don't think we'll ever be able to replace, at least not for the current generation of students, and probably some future ones, the physical experience that we normally would have in a classroom or in a university. So it's an excellent question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Anybody else would like to comment on this question? Ivica, please.
Yes, I would like to mention, maybe also related to one of the questions which appearing, which I have seen, that the students, the new generation, come to the ways of teaching which we as a teacher maybe have not taught about, looking at different resources on the internet and so. So actually there are kind of new ideas popping up, and sometimes students are better in searching that the teacher which are keeping with the old technology. So it should be kind of mutual task to build up such support.
I agree. I was just I just remember that when I asked this question to my students, and I asked them what they think what we should prepare for this semester to be better in distant education, and some of them mentioned that we should give students much more freedom to be independent researchers and count on them to learn by themselves, not just to push them in one or another direction, but to actually really support them, like in a flipped classroom. I really like it very much, but of course it's not always feasible to have everything in that way. But some of them said, okay, we would like to have much more freedom to find different sources and also to help you with how we can do it. Okay, let me see another question. Diana, she's asking, in my experience, students were more willing to communicate via chat during a synchronous video lecture than in a classroom. That's also my experience. Yeah. On the other side, forum in the LMS, Learning Management System, is empty. How do we incorporate technologies that our students, digital natives, already use in university? So it's quite interesting because the forums, official forums, are empty at the same time when you teach, and that's even in mathematics. So when you look at the chat, it was so so many comments and answers and so on. So it was difficult, and it is difficult for me to follow all of them at the same time. And yeah, and how we can actually create the space for them to cooperate, to have this student-student interaction, and for them to be much more engaged and active.
So it depends on the focus of the activity, you know. So I think if you create just a forum and you are expecting that students participate and that's it, maybe sometimes, well, there is no sense for them. So if you create interaction communities, debates with a specific purpose, then it's different, or maybe associated to, I don't know, a game-based activity or so on. So you have to create these spaces and these forums with a specific purpose. If not, I agree that sometimes it's not, well, they are not interacting there. In my opinion, for example, in an online university, I can say that the free forum, we say the free forum, it's a space that students can interact if they want. They are supporting each other. And it works pretty well, because sometimes, you know, as an open university, maybe the teacher is not there. So to answer a quick question, and they are, for example, they are asking this question to this forum, this public forum in the classroom, and someone is answering very immediately. So I think it depends. You have to organize in the classroom, the online classroom, these different spaces, and to specify the focus and the objective of this of each one. If otherwise, maybe it can happen this.
Not just give them the spaces and say, now you please discuss.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is.
Won't happen. Yeah. Okay, and then we have another comment mainly. But also a question to discuss. We talk too much about teaching and professors' view. Teaching with the help of technology can be more efficient and successful. That is a fact. And the acquisition of competencies is better if student is locked in a room without interference and outside influence. However, I think it would be complementary wrong, completely wrong, to try to push studying without social experience as something new normal. Studying without cooking in a dormitory, without partying, sharing good and bad. Okay, we can see that it's much more than just sharing a learning experience at the faculty and with the faculty and within the campus. Enrique, please unmute yourself. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I totally agree. You know, that's this technology facilitates the delivery of content, but there is a social aspect, a mentoring aspect, a role model aspect that needs to happen for education to be complete. So, as I said before, eliminate the need for social part. That's why in the future education will be hybrid, because we need both aspects. And also related to this ties with the previous question, whether we should really look new ways of using technology in universities. When if we see the first newspapers that appeared online 20 years ago, you will see that everybody was trying to replicate what the newspaper was physically, virtually. And the same, the first attempts to sell books, etc., were just posting the images of the books, and you could click download. And there was a learning curve until, you know, it was clear that taking advantage of the technology was far better than trying to reproduce what we had in the physical world. So I think we are in the beginning of the learning curve of what we can do now with distant learning, and in particular having the customers, so speaking, in terms of students that need to be taught virtually.
Yeah, that's right, because we have to decide what to actually have on site and what can be virtual. If you have lecturing for 300 students, it can be virtual the same way as, so maybe even better, so it can use much more advanced technologies and so on. But at the same time, because of this hybrid opportunities, when we have something on site and on campuses, buildings, and so on, it should be really relevant and something to support this proximity, social proximity, and these interactions that you're right about it. Okay. I can, there is no questions here to answer, but we are now very close to the to our final part of our panel, because we said that in the last part I would like to ask you just to in concluding remarks to really try to answer the question, what is your vision of the universities of the future? Very shortly, in 1-2 minutes per panelist, just to have a, let's say, some kind of a, not just concluding remarks, but visionary remarks. And I don't know who would like to start. I have my list, but...
well, maybe I can start.
Please do.
As we can see, institutions must be prepared for any future and extended crisis. So it is clear that technology provides an added value that allows us to design and support more flexible educational models, which are adaptable to the educational, social, and economical needs as they arise. So, but I also would like to remark that the principal difficulties facing pedagogical innovations are the lack of digital and media competence, absence of necessary institutional policies sometimes, and infrastructural limitations that should be addressed urgently. But there is a question also that arises to me. So it's, but however, what are the most effective pedagogical innovations implemented in digital learning environments? Sometimes it's not clear. And to answer this, first, we probably need to understand that the core trends and challenges in higher education are the key points that should be addressed and could transform decision-making about the future of universities and the, well, and the education in general, not just universities. And well, this is why today we are here in this panel discussing about possible scenarios and actions we could explore to address this challenging goal, isn't it? So that's all.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lourdes. It was really essential to think about institutional policies, transformation, and then That is not, so it should be very strategically placed right now. Okay, who would like to be next to explain? Or, okay. Yeah, Ivica, please.
Yes, I think we have experienced something unique in this period, both like enormous challenges and many difficult things, but also a lot of opportunities. And that probably will be then further developed. I believe that there will be large changes in the university in the nearest future, in the maybe next 10 years. There is higher opportunity for cooperation between universities. So there will be no problem to start a common course between two universities, much less than today. The flexibility of exchanging students virtually would be much larger. So in that sense, this physical presence of one university or locality would be less important than it is today. That also introduced a lot of risk or dangers in a sense that many universities can disappear. The question if that is good or not, you know that diversity is always good if it comes to very small, which can be like perfect, but that's one dangerous, I think. So probably the kind of those who will be able to cope with new challenges, and that will be combination of this international and digital communication with some local activities, I think they will succeed. Maybe that's similar like today you have big corporations, so why a company like Ericsson is in Zagreb and Split and not in Austria, for example. So that will be maybe similar questions that university will get this distributed environment. Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you. Thinking about it, what you said, that some universities will certainly disappear because this nearness, it's not so important anymore, or this virtual exchange environment give opportunity, but also endanger some of the traditional ones. Enrique, please.
I'll share my screen. Okay, what the university of the future will be, you know, this is, I was really pleased that you invited me for this panel, Blaženka, because during the summer I was working on writing that was published in the last forum. And some of the things that came up out of that research, or actually more literature review than research, that the difference are nowadays our instruction is mainly in class. Tomorrow it will be hybrid, definitely. At the very least 50-50. Virtual education is here to start. And another thing is nowadays the faculty, the professor, is the one who decides the content, prepares the syllabus, decides the assessment, prepares the delivery format, the production, everything. It is like if in the movies, if an actor were produce everything. I think now that will disappear. For example, with providers like Coursera, it's easy to engage some of that into our classes, or it's much easier to use their production facilities. And again, virtual classes will be perceived as same as high quality. It's the same as with when they started online, they started with the name Digital Ink because they were afraid that if they use Washington Post, their value would be diminished for being online. That's changed. I think that will change too. And MOOCs are going to be part of a normal instruction. Nowadays, when I give an independent study, I use MOOC because I don't want to prepare material. MOOC, and sometimes students have told me, you know, this is the best class I ever had. And in many countries, we're going to move from large number of students to massive number of students. If I can capture students from even overseas, definitely, if they pay tuition, I'll be happy to have not 500 students, but 5,000 students or 50,000. I think now we can do things like that. Again, this is a bit of speculation, but that's sure, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Enrique. It looks like very good scenarios. So let me now ask Mladen to finalize this final round.
Thank you, Blaženka. So, you know, we have been studying, and we is sort of not just NC State, but the world has been studying distance education for close to 60 years. Plato was the first automated system like that came out of UIUC close to 60 years ago. And I think we know a lot about what works and what doesn't work. We just didn't have the technology to support that. That technology is close to the point now where we can actually do things which we think are right and couldn't really do them. But the limitation is the ability of the faculty and the ability of students to absorb that information. Students still need, you know, 3 to 5 years to learn things, and that's not going to change. We are not changing humans. So I think the universities will change. I think they will have a much larger fraction of online or hybrid learning in place, but students do need social contact. They do grow up. Remember, they are coming out of high school, which may not really prepare them for life. And universities are doing that as well. And so physical campuses are not going to go away. They're going to be there. But people will, and particularly new generation of faculty, will learn how to do it right. And the students will get used to it, but there will always be the physical component. So the change will come relatively slowly because universities, like they always do, take time. It is probably true that some universities will disappear because they don't either deliver the right thing or their financial model isn't quite the right one. And I suspect that if we do it right, the cost of education will go down, but that remains to be seen. So I'm actually quite optimistic. I think this was a good thing for the universities to get more acquainted with different ways of delivering knowledge. But they also have to be wary not to go into sort of go on a tangent and throw everything online, because that will not work for a long, long, long time, if ever. So.
Thank you, Mladen. I also hope that in general the cost of education will go down, because it will give much more opportunity for many of those who are not nowadays have opportunity to enter and access the quality higher education. And now we are very near the end, at the very end of our panel. So we really, at the end, I would like to say very, let's say, thank you for all of your contributions to panelists and their participants. Thank you for staying with us for 1 hour and a half to comment, to participate. And now it's time to close our panel. And I was really enjoying this time spent that we spent together, and that we share our visions of the universities. I wish you all a very nice afternoon or morning, because in US, you are just beginning your day. And I wish you to be healthy, so stay healthy, and I wish you all the best for your professional and private lives. And I hope to see you soon somewhere else, and this time in a physical environment, not just virtually. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.